and welcome everyone to this session. My name is Camilla Sylvest and I represent Novo Nordisk. And we are one of the partners behind the Healthy Childhood Challenge. And of course, I'm very proud and humbled to be here today. Most of you might know that earlier this year, Novo Nordisk and UNICEF teamed up with a challenge to the world. What can we do to bring forward innovative ideas for healthy childhood through healthier and more active environments for children? And of course, we wanted to make the healthy choice, the conscious choice for all, but we needed some help from some bright minds. And that's why we put forward the Healthy Childhood Challenge. And I'm so happy to say that there were more than 100 entrants that wanted to engage with us on this challenge. And as many of you also know, we have more than 157 million children living with obesity today. And personally, I think it's very important that we all team up to ensure that children can grow up in healthy environments and make sure that they can break some of the social habits of the past, and also, of course, make sure that for the future that we build and develop new opportunities to bring down childhood obesity. So this project we developed together with UNICEF, and I am here with Vilma Tyler, who is the Senior Advisor for Nutrition of School-age Children and Adolescents at UNICEF. And Vilma, it would be great if you would put a few words into what this challenge actually means for UNICEF, and also why you wanted to be part of this initiative. We know that you have engaged yourself a lot in the childhood obesity and how to prevent it. So over to you, Vilma.
Yes, and thank you so much, Camilla. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today for this important event. The long-term health and development of children is profoundly affected by the foods they eat and the extent to which they are physically active. Yet the evidence is clear that infants, children, adolescents, and young people around the world are not getting the support they need to eat a nutritious diet or to engage in physical activity on a daily basis. That's why we have collaborated with Novo Nordisk on the Healthy Childhood Challenge, as we share a common understanding that healthy environments are essential for children to thrive and reach their full potential. And that is exactly what our three final winning projects are doing, tackling barriers to healthy and active lives for children through impactful cultural, social, and environmental innovations. Thank you, Camilla.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Vilma. And now we are moving on to the real heroes here, the actual winners of this challenge. And we are very happy and to be able to have them with us at this webinar so that you can all learn about what they have done and the inspiration that they will bring. So I want to welcome and congratulate the three winners that we will now announce. We have Rita Di Cassia da Silva from Brazil, representing a jury. We have Roberto Mutis from Mozambique, representing Mos Nutri, and you'll hear more about these later, and Renata Bulas from Brazil, representing Solidarity Kitchens. And Vilma, over to you. Maybe you will help us facilitate go forward.
Thank you, Camilla. Actually, to help us facilitate this webinar, we are joined by my colleague, Joe Jewell, who is a nutrition specialist from UNICEF, to represent the global selection panel. And Joe, can I ask you to put a few words on the process going from 100 submitted proposals to choosing the three winners? Over to you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Camilla and Vilma, and good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here today, and it'll be my pleasure to go over a little bit of the process that we went through as a global selection panel to arrive at our winners. So the Healthy Childhood Challenge was launched in May this year, and as Camilla mentioned, we were thrilled to receive 100 proposals submitted, and so the global review panel, with expertise in sustainable food systems, community engagement, nutrition, and public health, really rolled up their sleeves, looked into the details of all the applications, and eventually selected what we considered to be the top 10 strongest project teams to further develop their ideas. We then went through an extensive engagement process with these 10 project ideas, the finalists who were invited to participate in a series of workshops looking at different aspects of healthy environment approaches, and we encouraged them to refine their ideas based on feedback from the global selection panel. In October of this year, the finalists then pitched their ideas and their projects to the global selection panel, where 3 winners were eventually selected. And today we will learn more about those 3 winning cases. Before introducing you to our winners and sharing the stories of those projects, I just want to go through the program for the rest of our webinar so that everybody knows what to expect. So you'll hear a short intro from each of the teams, introducing themselves, a little bit of the background to their project, and then we'll cut straight into a video showcasing their initiative. And I've seen the videos and they're really, really great illustrations of what the projects are trying to do on the ground. This will be immediately followed by a live presentation from each of the winning teams speaking about what their ambitions are for the next steps of the project now that they've been selected as part of the Healthy Childhood Challenge. After this, we'll have 10 minutes of Q&A for each project. And so this is your opportunity, participants, to post your questions that you may have now or during the presentation. I believe there's a question mark box where you can enter your questions, and then I'll pass them on to the presenters. So hopefully we're going to have a really, really good discussion. So let's get started. The first will be our first team from Brazil, Ajuri, and this is the organization Usina de Imaginação, which I believe is a factory of imagination in Portuguese. I can see Rita nodding, so I got the translation correct. A little bit of background to this project. The Ajuri project works with the indigenous communities in Brazil, and their specific approach is to use film to facilitate the co-creation of strategies to recover cultural heritage. The aim is to support communities in restoring their nutritious food practices and traditions for active play that have existed for centuries. The Ajuri project won the Healthy Childhood Challenge due to its highly innovative approach and the team's deep respect for indigenous communities' culture and capacity to contribute to their own healthy future. The word is yours, Rita da Silva. Really looking forward to hearing more about the project. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here and very glad to be selected. Our project, Ajuri, is the idea is work together in community to make something to everyone. And I am an anthropologist from south of Brazil, and I have worked with children for many years. And I see it is a special moment to work hard because, we just have being alone, not alone, but with COVID, and it's so special moment to work together again. And I am so glad to be here, to be selected, and Ajuri is going to work with kids to make movies, and that's I don't know if I explain everything now or I just wait the next.
Você só vai bater e dizer. Mesmo que a gente tenha um celular bom, né? Mesmo que a gente tenha uma roupa, que a gente tenha um tênis de marca, mas a gente está aqui, né? A gente precisa revitalizar a nossa cultura, a nossa língua.
If the challenge is to recover traditional ways of play, of food, of cooking among indigenous people, how do you do that? And we have a rather innovative idea because we work with film. And we work with how it is that people see themselves. The camera, the television screen, the movie screen, that's the biggest mirror we've got.
Ele guarda a imagem ali dentro.
My name is Kurt Shaw. I'm the executive director of Usina da Imaginação, which is an NGO that works with children, especially from indigenous communities in favelas all over Brazil.
Porque enquanto estão produzindo, indo atrás de entrevista, eles estão aprendendo, né? Estão aprendendo tanto a filmar e tanto aprendendo o que eles estão entrevistando, a pessoa que estão.
One of the most important issues of any project is that the community has to be the protagonist. The community has to be the one who acts. And so it won't be us, Rita and I, who are teaching everything. We're going to be training local filmmakers who will be teaching. We're also going to be training local educators who are going to be showing the films, and we're going to be thinking together with the community how to make these sorts of changes. We're a catalyst for something that the community will continue for generations in the future.
Eu, Laís, eu moro na aldeia Coplan. Eu também gosto muito de aulas, aulas de audiovisual. Eu gosto muito porque esses dias eu fiz um filme. Aí depois nós começamos a ficar bem engraçado, começamos a ficar mais amigos, porque antes nós era mais afastado. Foi muito legal.
The first part of the process is fun. It's teaching kids how to make movies so that they feel comfortable around the camera, so that they can show what they're doing, their games, their stories. And then after that, we work with professional filmmakers who will work with the kids and with us to make movies that aren't just kids playing with a camera, but really are of high quality. In order to redevelop a healthy childhood, of games, of the food. We're sitting under an araucaria tree, which is the traditional food of the Kaigangi and Laclano people. How is it that we can recover that, and also so that indigenous people can teach that to us? Because those lessons that they have from their past can teach us how to raise our children in a more healthy way as well. For us, the fundamental message of Ajuri is that every culture has its solutions within itself. The question is, how do you find them and how do you bring them to the surface?
Well, how Kurt said in the movie, we are going to work with kids to make films and to think about what is well-being, good life, and recover some ideas of the past, and also connect generations to make films and then show them with the community to have a brainstorm to try to recover new ways to be held. The idea is connect kids with nature and playing together in community, and also make some start new work in the land to plant and to have recover the land, because that part of the country is very well destroyed by colonization, and that's sad because it's a very special place. And the idea is work together. Ajuri is just that, work together, and make better the community and make better the children's health.
Thank you very much, Rita. And I think one of the reasons when I was on the global selection panel that we were most interested in this innovation was because although it may at first perhaps not seem like you are doing a structural intervention, you're not changing anything in the community physically, but I think what you have a huge respect for in that process is the lived experience of the communities themselves, and you're encouraging through video for the communities to identify solutions that are relevant to their own context, and to find strength in their own communities. Could you expand a little bit more around how you view the power of film? Oh, nice to see you, Kurt, as well. How do you see the power of film in facilitating community engagement, ownership, and action? And really, I guess what I'm asking is, after creating the film, how do the films contribute to sort of action within the community?
Working with kids to make films is very important, because they feel they are in the modern world, because making films or being a film is something they but they normally are not able to make. And also to connect generation, it's important, because we are going to interview the oldest people in the community, to listen the children also, and to listen the ideas they have to change the community, not to be it's to work together. And the film is a kind of mirror, where they can see what the community would like to change, to act. And Kurt is here. He can explain with me a little bit too, if you like.
Hello to everyone. I'm very glad to be here as well. I think a little bit about those films, the Hollywood films from the 1950s, where you've got a girl in middle America who is watching a train go by on its way to Hollywood. Because there's this idea somehow, because of film, because of television, that life is elsewhere. The real life happens in Hollywood, in Rio de Janeiro, in Paris. And that's a real damage that film has done to all sorts of cultures. If you grow up in a little indigenous community, you feel that in the same way. You feel as if, in order to be real, I have to start consuming junk food. I have to be on that screen. And by putting yourself on the screen in a different way, by being on the screen and starting to feel proud of what your community does, and saying, this is something that really matters, then that transforms things. So I think that there's an ideological part, which is really important. But then a second part, which is what Ahita was talking about, is the way that when you show these films in the community, then the community starts to think. We've done a lot of work in the Amazon, and it was fascinating to see that once people began to see themselves on the screen and would talk about this in community, then suddenly there would be lots of ideas. Oh, my grandma used to do this. We can do this in the city. Why are we doing this in the city? There was a shaman who once taught this, and since we're not in the village anymore, that didn't seem to make sense. But the truth is, we can do it here. And so that's thinking of these films as a catalyst for the community to think itself. That's immensely important.
Thanks very much. That's such a nice explanation. And you just hinted a little bit. I think, well, obviously in the video, it's very clear that you're trying to look within the community for solutions and traditions that were healthy, around food and nutrition, traditional foods, traditional ways of playing, etc. Could you speak a little bit about the context that these communities are living in today? You mentioned junk food, unhealthy foods in your. Is that a challenge that these communities are facing in terms of, overabundance of, too much access to unhealthy foods and not enough access to nutritious foods? Could you speak a little bit to that for some of us who are not familiar with the context?
I will start, but I will leave Kurt to speak more, because my first language is not English, and it's hard for me to explain. If I can speak in Portuguese, it would be better. But okay, I would like to say the indigenous community in south of Brazil, they are not very well conhecidos.
Well known.
And they are a kind of invisible people. And they are trying to be in contact with the whole society, studying a lot, and trying to be modern and to be part of Brazil. And that's a challenge, because many times they have access only to not good food. And Kurt, can you explain how they lose the land and how they have that situation in that part of Brazil?
most of the indigenous groups in the south of Brazil were very nomadic before contact with the West. The movie has me sitting underneath an araucaria tree, and that's the winter food. And then during the summer, they would go generally into the valleys where hunting and fishing would be much stronger. When in about 1910, the finally contact was made with the Lacandon people who had been chased all over by the Indian killers for many years. They were invited to and this is a part of Lacandon tragic story that they will tell anyone who comes. They were invited to a great dinner to commemorate contact. Of the people who were invited, about 250 died of poisoning. Margarete, who is the woman who presents on the film, she uses that as a metaphor for thinking about how it is that their community continues to be poisoned by Western food. It's much slower now, she says. It's not that we're all poisoned in one day, but we're poisoned slowly by the chips, by the pizza, the cheese, the things that they're not used to eating. It's a community which was promised at that moment of contact a very large reservation. Over the last 100 years, that's been made smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, tragically. And the community is in a long fight with the federal government. Well, actually, the federal government is divided on the issue, but in a long fight in order to have the rights to the land that is given for so many years. And so that's also an essential part, as if they would have access to all of that land where they could continue to hunt in traditional ways, grow manioc in traditional ways, that would make healthy food also much more possible. So it's a question where they have been surrounded, they're under siege, both ideologically and in terms of their actual land, their physical land.
Thanks so much.
At the date of contact, there were about 5,000 Lacandon people. 10 years after that, there were about 100. Fortunately, they have grown back to having more than 6,000 people now. But that is a real tribute to their strength as a people. And this issue around nutrition is another place where they see this struggle continuing.
Great, thanks so much. That's really interesting. Coming to the films themselves, how do you anticipate that they will be shared both within and outside the communities you're working with? And what messages are you trying to convey to different audiences with this with these films?
There'll be lots of different films. The first one is a pilot, and the kids said, what do we want to make? We want to make a movie about zombies. This doesn't seem to have anything to do with healthy childhood. But the truth of the matter is, as the kids elaborated the script, talk about what they were doing, we found out that it has everything to do with it. Because what's a zombie? A zombie is somebody who has the cell phone in front of his face all the time. A zombie for them is also an indigenous person whose sort of life has been taken away because he's trying to be white. So that metaphor was really important for them to think about it. Those sorts of films will be one aspect, the films that the kids make and then we show in the community and which helps the kids think through those sorts of issues. But we'll also be doing lots of other films that have the community as an audience, but also the wider public. So people love cooking shows in Brazil. Why does a cooking show only have to be some French guy who has come to Brazil and is going to teach Brazilians how to do French food? The truth of the matter is that indigenous food is some of the most fascinating and challenging in the world. And the encounter between European traditions and Amazonian food, for instance, is bringing forward a whole new culinary school. Why not do a cooking show with an amazing indigenous grandmother that everybody knows cooks really well? And that can make its way onto local TV, onto social media, and that's the mirror that he is talking about, this huge mirror that allows the community to see itself in a new way, and which encourages other people, white people, black people in the south of Brazil, to say, oh yeah, let's do that too. Let's think about the ways that our food can also be more healthy and more creative. We can do the same thing with games, with the way that kids play, whether that's encouraging traditional competitions with petecas, with running, with swimming, with canoeing, or or the way that kids are climbing trees, or the way that kids are developing new ways of playing that integrate traditional forms and football and other things that have come from other places around the world.
Great, thanks so much. And we have one question coming from the audience, which I think is a really interesting question. Will you work on addressing the more structural and systemic challenges that the community is facing, e.g. loss of land, as you mentioned, through, for example, advocacy or legal assistance? How are you going to engage with that, and how do you engage with the broader community on these issues?
Yeah, that's a very important question. In fact, we never separate the action. It's together. The government is now trying to approve the
Marco Temporal.
Marco Temporal. It's a very difficult situation for the community, and that community is the key of a good discussion in the whole country. Can you explain a little bit more that?
We shouldn't have the idea that indigenous communities in Brazil are just there on their own. They are allied with many other people, with many other communities, and the Laclano people, because of this struggle around the Marco Temporal, have assistance from other indigenous lawyers, non-indigenous lawyers. It's a big deal. It's in front of the Supreme Court and has been for many years. And so it's not as if we have to work on our own on this. But one of the things that's very important in Brazil is that there's this idea that indigenous people, in order to deserve any land or in order to deserve anything, have to be the same as they were in 1500 when Europeans first touched the Brazilian shores. And that's just false. Indigenous people deserve their land because this was all there. All of it was theirs. And making that argument to the public, not just to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is immensely important, but we're not lawyers. That's not, we can provide ideas, we can be in dialogue, but that's the lawyer's job. What we can do with this work and with film is make those arguments to the public and show the wealth and what indigenous people have to contribute to Brazil as a whole, whether that's kids teaching how to play, grandmothers teaching how to cook, men and women teaching how to preserve nature while living together. So those are the things that we can contribute. We can help change the way that national culture thinks about indigenous people, that they are not there as a museum piece, and that the land is not there as a gift from the Brazilian government or from white people in Brazil.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
And so it's the changing of the frame around public opinion that we can contribute to. And clearly being in dialogue with the amazing indigenous lawyers and thinkers and anthropologists who are contributing to the issue around the Marco Temporal.
In fact,
I think that's what we saw as the panel in terms of the potential and your contribution to the ecosystem of narrative change and advocacy as well. I'm going to have to move on very quickly, but I would just like to give you 30 seconds just to say, what would success look like from this project? We realize it's, time bound. It's, not going to give you funds for infinity, but what would you consider success to look like from this Healthy Childhood Challenge in your project? Very briefly.
I think the first one is kids kids learn to make movies, and the community going working together to recover some heritage rituals, and then you can explain because he is going to be faster than me.
I think that the movie that the kids made about the zombies is a really good way to think about success, because the movie begins with the kids prisoners in front of their cell phones, eating chips, and at the end, the kids are climbing the trees. The kids are playing, they're running around, and then they run and have grandma's dinner. That to me is success. If that can happen in a great number of indigenous and Afro-Brazilian communities in South Brazil, that's an amazing success. If that can inspire others to do it, that's even better. But I think that the kids define the success there. The success is at the end of this year, if there are more kids playing, if there are more kids climbing trees and jumping into the rivers, that's amazing. And if they can eat their grandma's food, that's even better.
Thank you both so much for sharing where you're working, your context, and your ideas for the project, and wish you best of luck. And we look forward to hearing about how it goes. We are now going to switch to a different continent, and we're going to go over to our second team, Mos Nutri, who are based in Mozambique. And Mos Nutri implemented by the Mozambique School Lunch Initiative. So the Mos Nutri project uses an innovative finance model to secure funding for a healthy school lunch program in Mozambique. By buying peanuts from local farmers and marketing it at low cost, locally produced peanut butter, the Mos Nutri project creates jobs for local producers and entrepreneurs, improves micronutrient intake for the most malnourished children, and raises money for the purchase of nutrient-rich foods to ensure that more children get a healthy meal at school. The Mos Nutri project won due to their innovative and multifaceted approach to addressing malnutrition and due to their sustainable project design. The word is yours, Roberto Mutis.
Thank you so much. First, I would love to say thank you for being selected for Health Childhood Challenge. I am Roberto Mutis. I was born and raised in Mozambique. I grew up in Shoko, which is the city where we are based. And throughout my life, I've seen the challenge of food insecurity and hunger, and how this was particularly a problem for children. This led me to founding the Mozambique School Lunch Initiative in 2016, with the mission to provide nutritious lunches to vulnerable children who would otherwise be missing school due to hunger. And over the past 7 years, we have seen huge impact of the school lunch program on improving child nutrition and also leading to much better outcomes in school. Because of the school lunch program, kids come to school every day and they have energy to focus and learn in classroom. This made us understand that there is a tremendous need to expand the school lunch program and reach more children in need. This led us to starting the Mos Nutri, a social enterprise that is aligned with our mission of improving child nutrition. With that, I would now like to present a short video of what our work looks like today in Mozambique.
In Mozambique, we have a beautiful country, but people suffering of hunger, people suffering of illness. 43% of the children in Mozambique are malnourished. When the head of the family, for instance, dies because of HIV/AIDS, then the family cannot afford to have food. The children will stop going to school. One of the reasons because now the mother wants them to go and do something so that they can have something to bring home to the table. There is a need to help these kids get back to school and also to give them the nutrition they need. The Mozambique School Lunch Initiative, we have farmers that sell us the vegetables. We buy from the local. We give to the children.
Se sungula kurima, hi byala makhofu, hi byala betiraba, hi byala tinyala. Manje ku endla koloko loko swi byalile, swi game swi huma kahle, swi saseka hi tlhela hi xavisa.
Not only we are giving food to the children, or the nutrition to the children, or the education to the children, we are also boosting the economy of the community. This is what we want to do for this community. We wanted to do something that can really boost our project and can help us reach to more schools. So one thing that we saw that is not a junk food could really help was peanut butter. We want the price of the peanut butter to be cheaper than the normal peanut butter that are sold in the city.
Loko ra switolo ra durha ku tlula mpimo, se leri ni ta swi kota ku ni ri xava, ni ta swi kota ku ri xava hi ku leri. Liya hi tipreso ya ku.
With the Mos Nut project, we are using peanuts to make peanut butter. We are getting the peanuts from the local communities. We roast them, process them, produce the peanut butter in Shokwe. We make peanut butter and we bring it back to the community. It's by Mozambican and for Mozambicans. Those kids that had dropped out of school, they came back to school because they heard there is lunch now in school. And those who were coming once or twice a week, now they were coming every day.
Hikuva handle ka ku ni xavisa xikolweni ntsena la kaya na dya la ni lavaka hi kona na dya swi ni pfuna a ni sogoli ngopfu hikwalaho ka ku pfuneka hi project.
With the Moznutri project, we are going to be able to help many children. 43% of the children in Mozambique are malnourished. So with this project, we want to break that cycle of poverty.
So, as showed in the video, we have an incredible foundation of great work happening here in Mozambique. And with this opportunity of support from the Health Childhood Challenge, we have 3 big overarching goals that we want to achieve in the next year. First, we will be ramping up the production and sales of the peanut butter. This includes the hiring of sales manager. The sales manager is going to help us with marketing strategy, mapping points of sale, oversee network of resales agents, manage inventory, and manage everything that's related to Moznutri, from protection to the sale of the peanut butter. Mapping out is very crucial to us because it's going to help us to reach to more families with the peanut butter and therefore improve their nutrition. And also, with the profit that we're going to make from the sales of the peanut butter, then we are going to be able to expand the school lunch program and reach more children in need. Secondly, we want to expand the school lunch program. So as we begin to develop source of funding from the sales of the peanut butter, then we are going to be able to expand the school lunch program and reach many communities and many children that are in need. So this is how we do it. First, we work closely with the government, especially the Minister of Education and the Minister of Health. And together, we will sit and select communities that are more in need and select schools that have high number of vulnerable children. And after selection, we will visit those schools and those communities. And we will work closely with the community leaders. We'll work closely with the school directors. So from there, 2 ladies from each community, from each school, will be selected. And they will be trained to cook and serve nutritious meals to the students. This is very crucial to us because we want children to have good nutrition. That's why these ladies are going to be trained with people from the Ministry of Health, together with Mozambique School Lunch Initiative. And we have a robust supply chain of food products. We try by all means to source our products from the local farmer groups. This is crucial because we will boost their economy as well. So we do that in a way that we make sure that kids have something to eat in school and also they have something to eat at home. And from there, once we have that the program established, we have the program running, then we will come back, follow up to see how is the school program improving children's nutrition in that particular school, in that particular community, and also how are these children doing in school. Third, we will work with the communities in workshops as part of the Health Childhood Challenge project. We will also demonstrate to the community how they can integrate peanut butter into their diet, especially the diet of the young children from 1 to 5. We know that this is a critical window where children are growing and they're developing, so they really need good nutrition. Normally, parents in the community in the rural areas, they just use porridge to feed their children, but it doesn't have much protein. But now, with the peanut butter, they can mix it with it and give good nutrition to their children. So we'll show to them that just adding 1 spoon or 2 tablespoons it can make a huge difference to the health of their children. And this is what we are going to do in the next coming year, working with them, working with the community leaders, so that they can know that having this can change the nutrition of their children. They can give good health to their children. One thing that we like about this is because the community is not far from knowing it. I want to say that some of them, they know it, that it's good. And one thing that's interesting is because children love it so much. So giving them is something that they will enjoy it. But the most exciting thing about this is because we know that we are doing something different, because we are giving them. We are not just demonstrating only, but we are giving something that's affordable to them to use in their daily basis. So we are bringing this peanut butter to them at a low price that they cannot afford. They can afford. That way they use in their family. So this is very crucial to us, because our mission is to improve child nutrition. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roberto. That was a great video. So great to see the project in action, but also the summary and the plans that you shared with us are really exciting. And one of the reasons the Global Selection Panel found this this submission really interesting was in relation to the sort of multi-component dimension of it, the fact that there are multiple interventions going on within the project, and also that it had a sustainable model in a sense. Like you were looking to expand, and in order to expand you need resources, but you can do that through investing in the community, and it's the circular approach that you're using. So we felt that was very strong. And obviously for UNICEF, working with children, the school context is really important. And I think the video made it clear, and you've spoken to it, about how important the school setting is for nutrition and nutritious school meals. And you've spoken about how you're trying to expand this and diversify the nutritious food that children get to. I mean, could you, just so people understand, in the communities, how important is the nutritious school meal to families in the community where you're working?
Nutritious meals is very important in the family, in the communities where we are working. First, because, in Mozambique, almost half of children are malnourished. So that's really a challenge. So having very nutritious meals in school is very crucial to the families. And parents, they are so happy to know that they can relax, they can go to their farm, and they can take as much as time they want. They know that their children have good lunch at school. So that's very crucial for the families. And also, one thing that's it's important is because we are trying to fill the gap nutrients that these kids are missing at home. These kids, they do not have much. They do not change their diet. It's mainly maize porridge they eat every day. So having something different like chicken, like beans and kale, with peanuts, is something that's really different to them, and it's giving them the nutrition they need so that they can grow well. At that age, we know that they really need to grow well, and they need to be fed well so that they can really improve their nutrition. And so we are doing this in two ways. We are doing it from the market, and from school. This means that those kids that are still at home, they cannot make it to the school, they can still benefit from the most new production, because families that cannot, the small money they have, they can still be able to buy peanut butter and use it at home. And those that go to school, they will have it, because we will be opening new school through the sales that we'll be making. So this is something that we see is very crucial, and that the families love it so much because it's giving healthy food to their children.
Thanks so much. And we saw it. I mean, I think the key word coming out is diversity, the diverse types of food that you can offer through this program. And in the video, we saw such tasty looking green vegetables, beans, as you said. So it's it's really exciting that this, that this can be scaled up in the school setting. I mean, one question that we have is, the business model that you're proposing is around peanut butter. Do you have plans, if it's successful with peanut butter, do you have plans to expand to a broader range of locally produced nutritious foods? Because I noticed you were careful to say that this is nutritious food. So other nutritious foods that you have in mind? Maybe not, but it's just an interesting question. Is this a business model that could be replicated?
Definitely, our model, we think it can be expanded to produce more different nutritious foods that we can use for our school lunch program, and also we can make the community benefit from it. One of the things that we've been thinking through now is to have products that are based on orange sweet potatoes. We know that's high in vitamin A, so we are thinking so much on what we can make out of it so that we can really take it to the market and have it in our school lunch program. But as you know, we will have to try the market first and see what is it acceptable, how are the consumers responding to it. But that's one thing that we want to do. We are thinking for sure to produce other nutritious foods that can be used to expand the school lunch program and also benefit the young ones in Mozambique.
Great. And one aspect, of course, in all of this is creating healthy environments for children, but we also have to think of the wider environment and environmental sustainability. What are some of the considerations that you are thinking about, and what are your ambitions around environmental sustainability of the project in relation to farming practices, production, or packaging, etc., so that the initiative is as sustainable in its entire sense as possible?
Yes, definitely. We take environment so important to us, and as we mentioned, I think in our presentation, we buy peanut butter from the local farmer groups. These local farmer groups, they do not use much of the advanced technology, for their farming. And that's why even their production is still low, because they do kind of organic production, I would say. They make it really organically. So we want them actually to expand to produce more. Therefore, we will engage with them, work with them to see what are the best ways and the best farming techniques that they can use in the way that is environmentally sustainable. And in terms of packaging, we for now are using a reusable package that the consumer, once they buy the peanut butter, they can use that container for many different things at home. So it's not something that they can just use then discard it, which it would not be good at the environment. So for now, they use we are using containers that they can use for many time after they buy or after finishing the peanut butter.
Thanks so much for that answer. And then we are going to have to move on to our final team now. But again, the same question for you, rapid fire. What does success look like for you in this project? What will you be pleased to have achieved with this prize?
I would be so glad to say that for sure we are able to reach more children in need, more communities. We are giving nutrition that children need in the rural areas, and also in town. Everyone is buying it. So the way that we are going to see it is from the sales that we are going to make it. The sales that we are going to make of peanut butter is going to show us somehow that no, we are doing it. We are achieving our goals. And also the meals that we're going to save every day, every year, it's going to show us that we are achieving the goals that we want of improving child nutrition. The more we have the school lunch program running, the more people buy the peanut butter, then we will be sure that people are getting the nutrition they need.
Thank you so much, Roberto, and best of luck with the project. I will now move on to our third winner, and it's our second team from Brazil, and the project is called Solidarity Kitchens. So the Solidarity Kitchens project utilizes an existing network of community kitchens in order to empower and support families experiencing food insecurity. The project will use this initial contact as an entry point to engage families and connect them with other social services to address the root causes of poverty, hunger, and food insecurity. The Solidarity Kitchens project team was selected among the winners due to their strong understanding of the social determinants of health and their holistic and respectful approach to addressing key challenges faced by disadvantaged communities in Brazil. The word is yours, Renata Boulos.
Hello, everyone. Well, my name is Renata Boulos, and I'm a member of MTST, the Homeless Workers Movement from Brazil. We're very pleased to be here today among the winners of the Healthy Childhood Challenge. In a country where the poorest half of the population owns less than 1% of the national wealth, for the past 25 years, MTST has been struggling for social rights, decent housing, and food security. Brazil returned to the hunger map in 2021, and based on our experience of solidarity and struggling peripheries, MTST inaugurated 31 kitchens spread all around the country. These kitchens guarantee at least one free, nutritious, and healthy meal daily for families and their children who are experiencing food insecurity. Our kitchens do not provide only food. We offer support for our children, for our people, the ones left behind by the state. Some of them still have much room for improvement. This video, shot recently, we show some of the kitchens in more detail.
In Brazil, 6 out of 10 people are in situation of food insecurity. This food insecurity has been especially harsh to families and their children who are living in peripheral areas and have no access to healthy food. But our kitchens are also a welcome space to education and activities. The Solidarity Kitchens were inspired by the kitchens on the occupations of MTST, the Homeless Workers Movement. The idea is to provide anyone with a free, nutritious meal. You can come here with your own Tupperware and take home your own free meal.
Cozinha, para mim, é muito importante. Eu acredito que não só para mim, porque muitas vezes muitos de nós temos apenas essa refeição.
Para além das refeições servidas nas cozinhas solidárias, a gente também tem atividades específicas para as mulheres, para as crianças, para os jovens e adultos, né? E para os nossos idosos também. As pessoas formam um laço de amizade e aí começam a ver que não é só ela que tem um determinado problema, e sim a outra. E aí unem força para que juntos consiga sair pelo que estão passando, né? Na verdade, eu tenho algumas marcas, né? Algumas cicatrizes que me estimularam a estar aqui, a querer fazer mais, a querer acolher as pessoas, a querer dividir, a partilhar. Eu já tive muita dificuldade, mãe de 5 filhos, quando eu fiquei viúva, né? Então eu sei o que é ser de situação de rua, eu sei o que é não ter comida no prato, que é ajudando, é contribuindo para que a mudança haja de verdade. Então a gente consegue se sentir.
Now we have 32 kitchens all over Brazil and over 80 chefs and helpers that help the kitchen to cook, to take care of the kids. With this project, we are very, very happy because this is one big partnership that will allow us to maintain the kitchen. We can have more children involved. We can have 500 children that will be benefit from this project at least. We are really hoping that the Solidarity Kitchens will become a public policy.
A gente pode fazer muito pela sociedade, cuidando do futuro que são essas crianças. E olha quem eu sou hoje. Isso desperta muita coisa em uma criança. É assim que eu enxergo a capacidade que essa cozinha tem e todas as outras cozinhas têm de transformação. É isso. É cuidar do futuro para que a gente esteja esperança.
Well, as shown in the video, the Solidarity Kitchens emerged from the need and through the sweat of our communities and were strengthened by our association. Since March 2021, 800,000 nutritious meals have been distributed through our work. Tackling hunger is only part of our ambitious vision to create centers for healthy environments where children and their families can thrive. In addition, we plan to progressively increase our educational, cultural, health, and environmental activities for children in the kitchens. By empowering local communities, we create examples of how public policies could reduce health and food inequalities in vulnerable populations. The Novo Nordisk UNICEF Prize will allow us to strengthen our network of kitchens so that the good experience already implemented in some parts of the country can be replicated and improved in others, based on local needs. A stronger network will be more efficient in tackling food insecurity. The first steps of our project has been structured in accordance with our principle of action, empowering our communities to act together so that the collective through participatory process can decide its path. So after having defined a project team, we structure and run a diagnostic process. The diagnostic process will allow us to better assess the needs of the population around the kitchens and what kind of support is best. We want to strengthen the kitchens as community centers where an integral approach to support their users can be found. This integral approach is related to fostering urban food gardens run by community members, as well as supporting them in different fields such as social education, health, and legal advice. It is important to mention our focus in establishing new partnerships with local commerce, neighborhood associations, NGOs, local football teams, food suppliers, and drivers, strengthening existing ones. We also have partnerships with MPA, Movements Paul Peasants, MSD, and other organizations to provide organic food. But more than that, we aim to turn our kitchens into a public policies, as we mentioned in our video. By the end of the project, we hope to improve the social determinants of health. After 24 months, improving the lives of 15,000 people, including 3,000 children, and delivering 1.5 million meals. But, as mentioned above, more than nutritious meal, we offer community, solidarity, smiles, books, activities, listening, childcare, protection to the most vulnerable ones. We're proud of being able to be next to those who are in need in this moment and be able to feed with much more than food. We created a network of solidarity, identifying needs and ways to help each other. This challenge is one more opportunity to show our work to the world and help our community. It is a pleasure for us to be here. We thank you again. Our struggle is for real. A luta é pra valer. That's it.
Thank you so much, Renata, for those words. And it's very inspiring, the work that is happening. And again, just reflections on the conversations that we had in the selection panel, really very impressed at how you used food as the entry point, but recognized that the needs were much greater and the potential of your community centers was also much greater in the sense that you could offer, connect, bring together and support. And so very excited to see how this develops and to hear from you. In the video, it looked to me, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, predominantly sort of an urban setting, peri-urban setting. And, I think people don't always understand that food insecurity, hunger, if that's the right word, but also, struggle to access nutritious foods can take place in urban settings. Could you speak a little bit about what are some of the drivers of this situation in urban Brazil? Is it issues around affordability? People can't afford nutritious foods. Is it because they can't access it? I mean, could you speak a little bit more so we understand the context and why the situation is happening?
Yes, food insecurity in Brazil has been a problem for many years, but obviously with the way the pandemic has been dealt in the past years has made it a much more serious situation in Brazil. So we've been dealing with economic crisis that made it more serious. So when people were not dying of COVID, people have been unemployed. or they were being evicted from their home. They had no place to live, or they could no longer afford the rent. So they were being left at home. Children were left out from school, so they had no nutritious meal at home, so they couldn't buy a gas to cook at home. So if you cannot cook at home, if you cannot afford, you end up not having a meal. So we had to realize that we started delivering food baskets in the peripheral areas, but we realized that with those food baskets, people could not afford gas to cook beans or to cook rice at home. So we realized we had to have a place for them to cook. So we started having those places where people could come. That's why you could see in the video that people brought their Tupperwares, and some of them come to have a meal, but they also brought a Tupperware to take a meal home that sometimes, like I said, it's the only meal they would have. It's the only one. So this started as a response to the pandemic, and this increased that is a huge crisis in Brazil, that it's going on, and it's still a great challenge that people in the peripheral areas have been facing all over the country.
Thank you so much for also bringing that to life. And it reminds me of some work that we've been doing as UNICEF in South Africa to also really understand why communities living in informal settlements, for example, maybe struggle to take advantage of the food that is available, or services that are provided. And the example you gave was very clear, and something we saw in South Africa as well, is that people may not be able to afford the gas, or they may not also have constant electricity to refrigerate fresh products. So it's simply not an option. Even if the fresh produce is available and affordable, it's maybe not an option for them to have it at home or to shop for the week, because refrigeration or money for gas is just not an option. So really interesting. I love the ambition from a sustainability perspective to have this become part of government programming and policy. Could you speak a little bit about how you see that happening? How do you move from something that is more of a project into something that is established as policy and program? What is the way forward?
Yes, it's a long way, of course, but we start by having partnerships, as we mentioned, with local commerces around us. It's growing the community around it. That's why we started, it's from the community to the community. When we start with the kitchens, it's not only someone who arrives in the kitchen, they bring a little bit of bean they have at home, or we share the bread between us, and then another one brings the rice, the other one brings, and then when you see the bakery man that works in the bakery brings the bread that were left over to bring to the kitchens to share. So it starts with the solidarity concepts around, and then we start with partnerships with, like I said, commerce, and then we start looking for NGOs that support us. We have created WhatsApp groups with different locations and different groups around us to support. And this includes all peasant movements. They provide organic, nutritious foods, and they are with us. In different regions, we have partnerships also with grocery stores, food producers, with companies. But going through a public policy, it's something more talking to governments to support us. Some local governments are supporting, buying food to us, supporting our kitchen as a partnership to offer foods to people living in poverty. So we are hoping that this become a law or a law project that the municipal governments or local governments, or why not state governments, can afford to create more or support the creation of more kitchens in different cities to support population in need. But when I say a public policy, it's very important, but we mean also a partnership with our community and with other partners too.
Yeah, I think that's very clear. And one of the things, you're also mentioning around how you work with local businesses, commerce to, for example, around the organic food. one of the other aspects of the project is the connecting to additional social services in the communities you work in. How do you partner with them, and how do you approach those services?
For instance, we have a group of voluntary lawyers that work and offer legal services in the kitchens. We have a group of psychologists that come and work in our kitchens, talking about domestic violence, and they talk about violence at home. They give support for women, for children. We work with some after-school support, and people offer to the kids help in math. We work with after-school support. We also we have study groups so that the youth can prepare for what we call would be an SAT, which is the pre-university test that you have to do to get into the university. So we have study groups, that courses to prepare to get into the university, to the access to university. So we have study groups to get with voluntary teachers in some of the kitchens. So we have all kinds of partnerships related to education and health, and with local groups related to education, to health, to legal service, psychologists that work in community with our kitchens, in our kitchens. We also have partnerships with books, with paper stores that donate. We were able to get school supplies for kids, and also have movie sections for kids. So we can develop different activities depending on the local characteristics of each kitchen. In some kitchens we have movie sections, other one we develop chess context for the kids. I remember we were able to change a whole, and the kids of a specific place, they were loving to play chess. So we had chess tournaments among the kids. So it depends on the characteristic of every local kitchen. That's why we talk about developing a diagnostic. So we are kind of analyzing the needs of every kitchen and every place.
Thanks so much. And it's obviously very clear that people are at the heart of your project, whether that's people that you're trying to work with and serve the community, but also people who are involved. And clearly from the personal story of the lady who was in the video, she is working there, supporting now, and has a very personal story connecting to the work you're doing. So very inspiring. I'm afraid that our time is up for today's webinar, and I want to thank all of the teams, congratulate them again, but also thank you for the time that you've taken to prepare the videos and be here to discuss with me today. We hope that the webinar provided everybody who participated with some inspiration, and it will definitely not be the last time that you'll hear from these teams. We will be following the journey and progress of them, and look forward to updating everybody along the way. If you did miss a point or two, the recording is going to be available on the Healthy Childhood Challenge website, and a link will be shared on Novo Nordisk's LinkedIn page. As mentioned during the presentation, if the initiatives could be relevant for your own local setting, or you want to learn more, please let us hear from you, reaching out using an email address that will be shared with you, and we will connect you with our speakers. Once again, congratulations to the winners. You have huge reasons to be proud of yourself and the communities where you're working with. We're so excited to see how this goes. So thanks again to Rita and Kurt, Roberto and Renata, and thank you to everyone who joined today. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.